Hey everyone, it's Adrienne. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video where we're discussing the iPhone XS, the iPhone XS Max, the iPhone XS, the iPhone XS Max, and the iPhone XR. XR or 10R? Honestly, this whole thing is very confusing. That took me like 3 tries to actually get. Whatever they're called, I'm gonna talk about them. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already and you would like to, and if you wanna become a Finch fam VIP, then subscribe to my email list for exclusive content, productivity charts, templates, etc., all the info, all the perks. All right, you guys, I know that I'm a couple days behind. I really just had to get a grasp on what just happened with the iPhone launch. I can't believe it's already been a year since the launch of the iPhone X. I feel like I got this phone yesterday, and the fact that it's been a year is mind-blowing to me. I was actually going to make a 1 year later iPhone X video, but now it's kind of pointless because they're not even selling the iPhone X anymore. So even if I said, it's great, buy it, you can't. I'm not gonna lie, this was the most confusing keynote that I've watched. I think mostly because you have the letters and the numbers, and when you combine them all together, it gets really messy, and I am starting to not be able to keep track. When it was just numbers, it was a lot easier to keep track. Not to mention you have X and 10, which already is confusing in itself. Last year I was like, is it 10 or is it X? Do you say X? Comment down below and let me know what kind of phone you guys have. And let's take a bite of this apple. No, that was the worst. I'm gonna break it down simply for you guys, okay? Because that's what I needed, to break it down simply. The iPhone X is no longer being sold. Bye-bye, not an option. Don't even think about it. Get it out of your head. This phone is obsolete. Does that mean I can sell it for like thousands of dollars? Probably not. Maybe I'll try. So think about it this way. We have the iPhone XS, which is essentially the new iPhone X. And we have the iPhone XS Max, which is essentially what the iPhone X Plus would have been. Why they changed it from Plus to Max, I don't know. Yeah, let's add another confusing word into the mix. Sure. So instead of the 10 and 10 Plus, we now have the XS and the XS Max. Confused yet? So the XS is essentially what the S model was to previous phones, so the 5S, the 6S. Meaning it's slightly improved from the original 10, but here they just decided to replace this altogether. So this is just like the new and improved 10. Okay, so then we have the iPhone XR. This I consider to be like the iPhone 5C. Remember when they came out with that random ass, colorful, cheap version of the iPhone 5 and called it an iPhone 5C? So that to me is what the iPhone XR is, except it's still incredibly good and actually has majority of the same features as the other phones. So that's something to heavily consider when you're thinking of purchasing one of these three. The iPhone XR offers the usual gigabyte breakdown. So we have the 64 gig, the 128, and the 256. These are priced at $749 for 64 gigs, $799 for 128, and $899 for 256. So that's very affordable and not bad. When it comes to sizing of these three new phones, this is actually the middle size. As you can see, it's actually very similar in size to the iPhone 8 Plus. So that is a very big step up from the iPhone X, which I have right now, which is actually going to be the same size as the iPhone XS. And you can obviously see that even though the sizing is relatively similar, the screen itself is a lot bigger. So it takes up more of the surface area on the phone. So that's definitely a plus. The XS and the XS Max compare in size like this. So it goes XS, XR, XS Max. So let's discuss the XS and the XS Max and their features, and then after that we'll say what the XR doesn't have that these have. So starting with the XS, which is again the same size about as this, we have the pricing listed as this: $999 for 64 gigs, we have $1149 for 256, and then we have $1349 for 512. So this is a ridiculous price point, obviously. I know we all felt that way with this. This is equally as ridiculous. The other ridiculous thing is that I don't feel like anyone in their right mind needs 512 gigabytes. Call me if you do. I'm a YouTuber. I do everything on my phone, and I only use about 60. So let me know. I find that very interesting, but as my roommate pointed out the other day, the good news with that is that if the highest price point is a gigabyte amount that we don't need at all, it's kind of nice because then we fall lower and lower, which will mean the phones will be cheaper. Versus before, I always needed the max, which costs the most. So the iPhone S has that same Super Retina HD OLED 5.8-inch display as the iPhone X, so that will be the same. However, they do say that the screen will display 60% more dynamic range when it comes to HDR content. So if you are shooting photos in HDR, apparently there will be 60% more dynamic range. So just like more sharpness between foreground and background and so forth. It'll be able to define more of it. So only if you really care about like photography, kind of all really matters. By the way, sorry if I butcher any pronunciations. I'm not a tech genius. I just like this stuff. I don't know if it's called OLED or OLED. I don't know. I'm just gonna say it how I'm gonna say it. We also have, sorry, I'm reading from my notes. We also have 120 hertz touch sensing, which is double that from the iPhone 10. So essentially what that means is that when you touch your phone to like tap an app, it's twice as quickly to respond to your touch. So that's kind of nice. You will definitely notice improved response time when you click on an app, so that's awesome. Let's talk about Face ID. So we still have this obnoxious notch. It hasn't changed in size, so that's kind of frustrating to me because that was a big point I don't like about this phone. But they do claim that it's faster Face ID so that you can be recognized faster. They didn't put this into numbers at all, so I don't really know how it's faster, but apparently it's faster. Who knows? The phone will be the same size as this phone, as we already discussed. It will be a tiny bit heavier, but not heavier in the sense that you'll notice that, so a non-factor. With the 10S, you will be able to submerge your phone 2 meters down for 30 minutes instead of 1 meter like this one, but honestly, I'm just scared to do that anyway, so that is cool, but I don't know. There will be a 25% increase in speaker volume, which is kind of nice because if you're just like down in the kitchen and you don't have your Bluetooth speaker or you don't want to connect, you can hear pretty well from these speakers. So that's pretty nice. 25% increase, not bad. I think one of the best features of these new phones, even though it's not very pertinent to me, but a lot of people have talked about it, is this new dual SIM card capability. So they have one eSIM, which is like in the phone, one normal SIM. So you can essentially run 2 phones or 2 lines on one phone. That's confusing to me, but apparently that's really cool and really good. So yay, Apple. The other thing the 10S offers is another color, which is gold. So if you guys now want a gold phone, you will have space gray, silver, and the gold option. But that's really the only thing that will distinguish the 10S from this particular phone. If someone was just looking at it, they wouldn't necessarily know unless it was gold. Like I talked about, we do have this smart HDR feature. HDR basically combines the best frames from several photos into one. So you take the photo and it ends up being this very highly dynamic photo. The other thing is that portrait mode can now be edited after the photo is shot, which is super nice, and honestly Apple was a little behind on this, but if you take a portrait mode photo and a little bit of your hair is still kind of blurry, you can actually tap on the little notches and adjust that. So that's really nice. There's also said to be improved low light performance on the back camera. I will be very curious to see how that actually works because honestly this camera is not amazing, really, truly, but I'm also someone who does this for a living, so I definitely know and I'm picky. So I'll be curious to see if it really does shoot better in low light. I kind of doubt it. But I guess it's really crappy in low light now, so maybe it will be an improvement. The battery life, you guys, is only gonna be 30 minutes better on the next phone. That is an improvement, but this battery life is not great. So I was a little bit disappointed to hear that the battery life increase wouldn't be more than that, but what can you do? All right, homies, so that's the 10S. Moving on to the 10S Max. Now, there really aren't that many crazy different features about this besides having that giant, enormous screen, which is incredible. I mean, it's literally the most incredible screen ever. So that is definitely a plus. Get it? A plus. This is a 6.5-inch display, so it is bigger. And this also has the 2 meters of water resistance. The price points for the iPhone XS Max are $1099 for 64 gig, $1249 for 256, and $1449 for 512. It just blows my mind. I know in America we actually have it better because in Europe they have to pay like thousands and thousands of dollars, but it blows my mind to think about paying $1249 for a 256 phone or $1449. You're paying almost $1,500 for a phone that you replace in 1 or 2 years. And yes, the technology is incredible. If you think about it, you're getting a camera, you're getting all of this technology in this little device. I pay thousands of dollars for cameras. I don't know, I just think the price points are absolutely ridiculous. I think if you're looking for a cheaper, more affordable phone that still has incredible features, then go with the XR. I think that's definitely the best bet. Back to the XR, it is able to be pre-ordered on October 19th. I already said the price point. So this is gonna have the new Liquid Retina display, 6.1 inches, but Liquid Retina display is basically their fancy way of saying it's actually an LCD screen, but it's like the most advanced LCD screen. So you will notice if you had a 10 and then you wanna go to like the XR, you will notice a decrease in quality on the screen. That is something I don't know if I could deal with. I think that that is a huge point because you're looking at that screen every single day. So for it to drop down in sharpness, I don't love. Another downside is that it only has 1 meter of water resistance versus 2. But again, unless you're like constantly going in the water and taking photos, it doesn't really matter. That's still 3 feet down. That's pretty dang good. This phone also comes in blue, white, red, black, yellow, and coral. So again, like the 5C, I personally think it's a little bit tacky, but you do you, not gonna judge. You get whatever phone you want. So these are the areas where the iPhone XR is definitely great, okay? We have the same 12 megapixel camera. However, the XS has a dual with wide angle and telephoto. So that has both of those lenses. The 10R only has just the normal, so it's kind of like the one on the 7, I believe, if I'm correct. They both have the 7 megapixel true depth camera. They both have Face ID. They have the A12 Bionic chip with next generation neural engines. So they both are gonna have that quicker processor, which is super nice. It has the same wireless charging. So across all 3 of the phones, another thing that we are going to have is this advanced bokeh system, meaning basically you can control the depth of field. So you know when you have the portrait mode and it's in focus and then out of focus back there, you can control what depth of field that is, so how blurred the background is, which I do think is really cool. You're also lacking a couple of the portrait lighting effects. So with the 10S, you have natural studio, contour, stage, and stage mono. And with the 10R, you only have natural studio and contour. You have 4K video on both. You have 1080p video on both. You have video stabilization. You have the equally slow-mo video, which is awesome. For the front camera, you actually have all of the exact same features, which is actually pretty cool. So yeah, when it really comes down to it, it just sounds like a couple of the camera features, like not having that dual camera thing, and then not having the same OLED screen, so not having as many pixels in the display, which will just bring down the sharpness a little bit. Those are really the 2 things, but I do think that the 10R will be the best bet for someone who's looking for an affordable option that still has incredible technology, every use that all the other phones have, and that wants a more affordable price. It's for the everyday user. It's for someone who doesn't need all that fancy tech. And then quite literally, the only thing different about the 10S Max is the size, honestly. I guess I just wish that the 10S was the size of the 10R, because I actually like the bigger phones better. I like all the features. So maybe the 10S Max, but then that's ridiculously expensive, so maybe not. Anyway, you guys, that was my breakdown of the 3 new phones. I hope it wasn't confusing. I will learn more information and be able to share that with you guys. As you know, my first reaction is always just immediately what comes to mind. I don't own these phones. I haven't experienced them. So I will be able to give you a lot more in-depth look once I actually purchase one and sell this one. So I'll be sure to make more content regarding that, but please leave any comments or questions down below. I would love to talk about this with you, hear what you guys have heard, and let me know if you end up buying any of them. I'd be really curious to see. Without further ado, I'm gonna end this video. I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!